Ajnanatimidandasya Gyanam Janashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Shrishtam Manumapi Satriputram Atra Sarupam Rupam Tasya Grajamurupurim Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhikamadhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratitha Gripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nikhila Shruti Moli Ratnamaladiti Nirajita Badapankajanta Aji Mukta Kulairupashyamanam Paritashtam Harinam Samshrayami Anarpita Charim Tirat Karunayavatirna Kalho Samarpaitum Unnatoshvalarasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyutikadamba Sandipitaha Sada Hridaye Kandaresh Purato Vasachinandana Ajanulambita Bhujo Kanakavadado Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Jugadharma Palo Bandi Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Ladini Shakti Swarupaya Gauranga Suridaya Cha Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namostute He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Radhe Vrindavanadishe Karunamrita Vahini Kripaya Nicha Padabja Dasyam Mahyam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Vihinaya Aparadha Lakshay Kshiptashakamaditarangamadhye Kripa Mahitvam Sharanam Prapanam Brinde Namaste Sharanarvindam Brinde Namaste Sharanarvindam Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Gaudiya Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai, Samavita Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Anartha Nivritti Ki Jai, Gaur Pramananda Hari Bol. So, welcome you all, those present in 3D, in 2D, online as well. And we are continuing with our morning sessions, at least morning here in Austria, on what is Anartha Nivritti really. Not apparently. No? Sometimes we say this, we have this idea of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, real and apparent. What's the real thing? What's the apparent thing? So we want, hopefully, another way we could have named this series Anartha Nivritti as it is, right? Like Prabhupada has Bhagavad Gita as it is, not as it seems to be. So what is Anartha Nivritti really? So today we are in part 4. We had an introductory lecture, and then we go through love, Anartha Nivritti in the context of love, which are the false beliefs, false values that we need to get rid of. Anartha Nivritti means that in the context of our understanding and approach to the reality of love. And then yesterday morning we had a very dynamic exploration in connection to the topic of God. And we went through different key paradigm shifts, as I include them at the end of each chapter of my recent book, Evolution in Divine Love. So I'll make a brief mention of which were those as a kind of summary of yesterday's lecture, and then we go to today's topic. So yesterday we had 8 key paradigm shifts. The main one was the first one, that misunderstanding the root of reality distorts everything else. In other words, misunderstanding God distorts everything else. He's the source of everything. So we need a clear understanding of the divine to get a clear understanding of everything else. Also, that God's changelessness is nuanced. Yeah, God is changeless, but in a certain way that doesn't make him a museum piece, a frozen ice cube. But it's changeless in certain ways, but not in every way. Because then the third one is God is also ever fresh. We share different quotations from Shastra that prove this. So God is in ever constant ongoing expansion in his experience of love. So we have to acquire this new logic that allows us to accommodate both what seems contradictory on a lower level. God is changeless and ever new at the same time. Achintya abhed tattva. Then the fourth key paradigm shift we explored yesterday was that God's perfection is not a fixed maximum, right? And not an end point, that there's nothing else to be experienced or discovered that will make for a boring God, a God without wonder. And a God without wonder is no God at all, because God is rasa and the essence of rasa is wonder. So the essence of God is wonder. Then we also mentioned how God is not entirely impassible. Remember this expression, impassible, which is someone who doesn't feel anything for the rest, is beyond all emotionality. And we show how that's not the case, though Krishna may lack a first-hand experience of what it means to be an illusion. We need him to be beyond illusion so he can address our illusion from a sober perspective, right, so to say. And then we talked about God's omniscience and how it's dynamic and how there's ways in which we could say Krishna knows everything, past, present, and all future possibilities, but he doesn't know exactly what will happen in future terms, because that will make everything predetermined, prescripted. And again, we will be with a God, we will end with a God that there's no space for surprise. No one, because I already know everything. So when I look excited, as we say yesterday, I'm actually faking it. It's like, no, our God is not a faker, cheater in that sense. In the Lila, there's some other cheating and faking going on, but that's another conversation. And then we went to the idea of God is not completely timeless. We spoke about time, eternal time, the dynamics of time in the Lila, Chronos, Kairos, and so on and so forth, and how there's a sense of time that is facilitating the experience in the Lila. It's not, there's no form of time at all, and Krishna is time himself. So there's a place for all that. And we concluded saying that in order, considering all that we said and all the paradigm shifts and probably ideas, new ideas that came, in order to know God, we need probably to unknow God. In order to learn new things, we may need to unlearn new things. As I quoted Richard Rohr, in order to have a new experience of God, we may need to let go of our previous experience of God, because the previous experience may be the greatest obstacle to the next experience. We have to not be too attached to how Krishna looked like 5 minutes ago and allow him to be all that he can be in the here and now. So that was yesterday. So now we are going to today's topic. Fasten your seatbelt fasten. Like they say in the plane, yeah, everything's fine. Sit in the proper place. So in the context of Anartha Nivritti, of getting rid of false values, today we will go to the next theme, the third one of the 4 that I'm addressing also in my book, God's love, God's soul, and matter. So now we're arriving at us, the Atman, the Jiva, the soul. So probably this and the next topic are the 2 more difficult topics where we have the more misunderstandings about who we are and also what's the material world. That's tomorrow, right? The world of matter, and many ideas that we may need to deconstruct and dethrone about the world and about ourselves. So I trust it will be a very, hopefully, fruitful, enlightening conversation. Let's see where that ends. I had no clue where it will end yesterday, and it ended in a very interesting place. So I pray that will happen again in its own unique way. So today we'll go to then the third chapter of my book, which is about, again, so the book is titled Evolution in Divine Love, and the subtitle is The Eternal Becoming of God, Soul, and Matter. So today we will go to the eternal becoming of the soul. The title of the chapter is Mapping the Soul's Unbroken Potential. And let me begin, as I did yesterday, why not, with the epigraph, with the inaugural quote that I shared at the very beginning of the chapter. It's a quote from Carl Rogers, he's a psychologist, and he has many interesting things to say in many directions, and this is one of those. He says, speaking about us, as again, with unbroken potential, a person is a fluid process, not a fixed and static entity, a flowing river of change, not a block of solid material, a continually changing constellation of potentialities, not a fixed quantity of traits. So that's how I chose to open the curtain of this chapter in the book. You are a continually changing constellation of potentialities. Sounds romantic. Of course, we will go also to the idea that the soul is also changeless. So, so it doesn't feel too unstable, everything changing in every way, right? So anyhow, we'll go to the key paradigm shifts one by one. Let's see if time accompanies us. Krishna's time, so we trust he will accompany us. We'll go, we have 9 to explore today again. So we'll go to the first one. Let's see how far that takes us. So the first one says like this. Again, as we started before, saying with love, saying, well, let's define love first. What's love? And yesterday we said, okay, what's God? And if we get God wrong, we get everything else that comes from God wrong. So who we are. So one way of defining ourselves, this is the first key paradigm shift, is we are our potential. We cannot define ourselves separate from our potential. The elaboration says the soul is defined not only by what it is, but by all that it has the capacity to become. It is a unit of boundless potential, ever evolving and expanding. We are not static entities, but dynamic processes of perpetual unfolding, endlessly reaching toward greater possibilities. At least it sounds hopeful to me to know that I'm that. Right? So that's the first key paradigm shift. You not only are what you are, but all that you can be. Even if you don't have the most generous idea about who you are at present, there's potential waiting for you. So please identify with your brightest potential. As one Srila Siddhar Maharaj said to one devotee, looking deeply in his eyes, say, your future is brilliant. He said that to you also, Lalita, to all of us, to all of us. Your future is brilliant. Even if you feel, but my present is dark, so dark, your future is brilliant. So that gives hope. So that's who we are. Right? We talked 2 days ago. Love is potency plus potential. Every potency has some form of potential, can become something else. So love is a potency, Swarup Shakti, Bhakti Shakti. We are also another potency, Jiva Shakti or Tatastha Shakti. So every Shakti, every potency has potential. So that not only applies to love having endless potential, that applies to us as souls, especially in connection to love. But we will also see how it applies to us in connection to other potencies. So that's the meaning of tatashta, this word that sometimes is used to refer to the soul. Tatashta, unit of potential. Sometimes tatashta can be translated also like as marginal, in the not in the bad sense, just in case, no, you're marginalized, right? Or liminal, like we are like according to the environment we associate with, that will like help us express our potential in one way or the other. No? And we will see that in a few minutes. We have ever evolving potential, but also we have ever devolving potential if we don't go in the right direction. And we have seen that you just take a glimpse at history, human history. So we are a unit of potential, but again, potential waits to be actualized. So we could say we are units of unactualized potential. We say, Maharaj, I'm not feeling the brightest potential in me. The potential is there, but it's unactualized. So we need to actualize the potential by proper association, proper connection with proper sources of inspiration. That was one of the main themes of my first book, when I'm speaking about the nature of bhakti and the nature of the soul in relation to bhakti and what's all that we can be under the shelter of bhakti. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita will say, under the shelter of bhakti, you become Mahatma. Now you are Atma. You can become Maha-Atma. You are an Atma soul, you can become a Mahatma, a great soul. The soul's potential can expand under the shelter of bhakti. Mahatmanas tumam partam daibim prakriti masritaha. You did Bhakti Shastri Krishna Bhumi. Complete the verse. Okay, I'm joking. It's okay. So Krishna is saying that Mahatmanas tumam partam daibim prakriti masritaha. We can stop the verse there, no problem. That's the main part I needed to go. He says, the Mahatmas, Krishna, and he uses the term Mahatma for his devotees, are those who have taken shelter, Daivim Prakritim Asrita. They have taken Asraya, shelter under Daivim Prakritim, by divine nature, under love, under bhakti. So when the soul takes shelter of bhakti, the Atma becomes Mahatma. The soul's potential becomes actualized and expanded. So again, this is an important thing because it's tied to who we are and who we define ourselves when we look every day in the mirror. Who am I? Again, there are many ways to answer that question. As we said the other day, you are the beloved of Krishna. That's a beautiful way of saying that. I'm a unit of beautiful, boundless potential in the context of love for God. So there are so many ways that we can coherently define ourselves. And there are so many other ways that have nothing to do with who we are also. So we need to get it right. So we need to, again, define ourselves according to who we are, and who we are is inseparable from all that we can be. It's not, there are not two different things. That's the point. Who we are and who we can be is not two separate departments. Who we are is who we can be. So it's important that we can sit for 3 months just with that line. Who am I is all that I can be. And like a koan, like let it like disclose itself. Sorry, my person. Yeah, we are units of potential. We have units of potential. So we have inherent potential in so many directions. One of those inherent potential to embrace love and to attain the highest peaks of all that we can be. And that's why I like to say also, since we are units of potential, we have a commitment to our potential. Try to stay with that quote for a moment. We have a commitment. We have a commitment in the good sense, not like anything forced, but it just happens to be who you are, a unit of potential. So you have a commitment to all that you can be. That's our dharma. That's my duty with myself. I have a commitment to my potential. I'm a unit of potential. I have a commitment to all that I can be. I'm called to actualize all that potential. So that's the first key paradigm shift. Hopefully it's not a paradigm shift, and hopefully that's normal for you. Yeah, of course, I'm a unit of potential. I'm already living my life from that place. But sometimes we tend to over-identify not only with who we are, but sometimes with who we were and things from the past and very limited perspectives of our identity, or even with who we are, but not as with all that you can be. So who we are is all that we can be. in ever-evolving love. So we are units of eternal becoming, units of potential. Now, someone could argue, Amarash, but you're saying that we are units of eternal becoming. We can become so many things in potential. But in scripture, the soul is repeatedly described as changeless. Let's bring changelessness to the equation, to balance our discussion. We don't want to go either to any extreme. So then we go next to the second key paradigm shift. But before going there, any thoughts, any ideas, any other anarthas in this connection, any other false beliefs we may have in terms of how we define ourselves separate from who we actually are?
Is it that we limit ourselves? We make apparat against ourselves?
That's a good one, yeah. Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually says that when we didn't go there in the first class, remember that I described how Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes anarthas? He says 4 categories, and we had just went to one, who was Tattva Brahma, to be bewildered about reality. And it was to be bewildered about who we are, what love is, who God is, what the material world is. But then there's another category that he makes, which is aparad, which is also the category that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes, aparadota. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur then divides aparad in 4, and one of the 4 is jiva aparad, to commit offenses against jivas. Therefore, generally, we will think against other jivas. But following what you say, you can be offensive toward your own self. You can insult who you are. You can insult the constitution of the soul by,
That means it's also an apparat against the holy name.
It's all related, yeah.
So when
because remember, aparad means aparada. Radha means love against love. So if you act against love toward yourself, toward something else, that creates an obstacle in how we relate to everything else, because everything is interrelated. So if you offend yourself, that gets in the way of how you're relating to Krishna in the form of the name, to other people. Again,
I think we don't think about it.
That's why we are doing this series of classes.
The holy name never come and blossom when we always against us.
Yeah, that's why Anartha Nivritti means to become aware of those things that are getting in the way, and that's why we wonder why. That's why it may sound exaggerated, but the Bhagavatam says if you chant half a syllable of the name and you're not in ecstasy crying, there's something getting in the way. Not to make you neurotic, but just to invite you to be aware of. Don't take for granted that you just are doing it perfectly. There are so many stuff that we need to become mindful of. And it's a gradual process. And the more aware we become, the more careful, not neurotic, but careful we become. And the more the actual fruit of the name and the practice comes naturally, because you have taken out all those veils that were getting in the way. So you get in a direct, more concrete experience of the real thing. Yeah. So all this is Anartha Nivritti, and all this is for the sake of making our practice and relationship with the name and Krishna more unfiltered, right? More unobstacleized, more direct. Yeah. You want to share something?
Yesterday when I was going home, then I was thinking a little about your statement that certain individuals or institutions, whatever, feel threatened in a way of what you are speaking about. And of course, I anticipated it, but I was trying a little to go deeper into that, and what I came up is that it is threatening because it's something like radical self-responsibility.
Yeah.
So there is no one to blame, and this also changes the whole concept of guru. Guru is not one to give your life in a toxic way, so that he lives my life, and he just tells me do this, do that, think this, think that.
Yeah.
But his task is to
he or she,
just in case,
yes, Since we are redefining things.
How is it called? Generative masculine. As a certain term one could use masculine in a.
It's okay.
But it's, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Okay, so and I think this is very threatening that I cannot blame someone. I cannot blame my guru. I cannot blame because this is
You don't need
taking from my own glory.
Yeah. There's no need to blame anyone.
There is no need to blame.
There's no need to anymore to play the blame game.
And everything that's happening to me is just
take
me.
Yeah, take responsibility. But even without toxic blaming and okay, if it's not me, who I have to whip? No, nobody. Just take responsibility.
And there's somehow interpreted with the notion that Krishna is changeless, and to absolutize this point, he's changeless. So for me, there is some direct connection with radical self-responsibility, because I know people don't really get it, but maybe you have some idea of it.
I mean, responsibility, freedom, they are connected. What you were talking, I thought we are terrified about.
This is the
and I don't want to go so much in the topic because we may go away from what we are discussing today, but it's all related at the same time. But yeah, we are generally terrified about freedom. So we want someone to tell us what to do, how to think, and so. And in the beginning, it's okay, but ideally, a relationship of love is full freedom. Full freedom. So and everyone takes full responsibility. I like to redefine the word responsibility as responsibility. No? The ability to respond at any given moment for what the situation is inviting us. No? And yeah, many times that's scary. And I can understand because of that, people may get scared and may overreact or act defensively and feel threatened and react and attack in return. But it's just in the root is a fear of become responsible for who we are, and going back to the definition for all that we can be. And there's nobody to blame here, not even myself. In one sense, it's just take responsibility and move on. We don't need the whip festival anymore, right? Yeah, a parade, whip parade. Here comes the whip for this particular Anartha. Bring whip number 3. Oh, this is for the other ones. It's like we can release all whips and just. So yeah, thank you for that reflection. Since we are talking about changeless, let's go to the second key paradigm shift. The soul is changeless, no? To balance the equation, yet ever evolving. No, we don't want to miss that one. The soul's essence is eternal and unchanging, transcending birth and death. No, in that sense, we do not change. The soul is not born, it doesn't die. Krishna makes that clear in the Gita. Its changeless nature lies in its boundless potential to experience love in endlessly fresh and dynamic ways. That doesn't change either. We have ever-evolving potential for love. That's unchanging. This does not imply a fixed, predetermined form of divine love, but highlights the unshakable foundation within us that continuously evolves in its expression. So, second key paradigm shift. No? Again, like we already talked yesterday about God, there are many statements in the scripture, God is changeless. We quickly qualified in which sense he has nuanced changelessness. God is always God is always love, that doesn't change. But his love, because his love, that doesn't change, love in itself is always growing and expanding, and that does change. So he changes in one way and he doesn't change in another way. So like God in a similar way, the soul is also changeless and also in a nuanced way. Like, for example, if you go to the Gita, 2nd chapter, verse 20, Krishna will say the soul is changeless. Sashvata, which means permanent, stable, changeless. Or then he will say the soul has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being, which seems to look like, wow, that's pretty changeless. But again, that's speaking about the soul does not come into being. The soul doesn't start existing. Soul is not created. The soul is eternal. No, it's not that it becomes at one point and before that it was not. It is. And on the foundation of what it is, it can expand. No? In the verse 16 of the second chapter, also Krishna says, of the eternal, there is no change. No? And again, we have to understand in a nuanced way all this, because then we will have all these other statements about ever-evolving potential. So everything has to be put in the scale. No? Krishna in the Gita says, Stanu abhikarya, the soul is untransformable, unchanging, in the sense that the soul doesn't become not soul, right? As God never becomes not God, the soul is always eternal, the soul is never born, never dies, it's always a soul, it's always a unit of potential, and in that potential there is ever-evolving possibilities for experiencing love. To follow how to navigate this changeless side. No? Jiva Goswami also in the Paramatma Sandarbha says the same. On one side, when he gives qualities of the soul, he gives like 21 attributes. One is changeless. But then the soul has endless potentiality. Okay. Again, Rupa Goswami is saying Krishna is changeless and he's ever fresh. So we can see how our Goswamis put both quite close to each other to put us again in a space of paradox. No? Learn to accommodate this that seems contradictory. Changeless, filled with potential. The soul never changes. The soul never stops changing in its potential for love. As the saying, famous saying says, the only constant is change. No? That's interesting. Like that day we were given the example, I think, in Italy. What's the name of a famous river here in Austria? I cannot pronounce it. Danube. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you were telling me the other day, Danube. So we always call the Danube. It's changeless. But the Danube is never the same. No, as the saying goes, you can never bathe twice in the same stream. It's always moving, it's always flowing. But it's the same river. But it's not the same river. But it's the same river. But it's not the same river. I can still doing that for eternity, say the same thing, right? So again, this is how reality operates, even when speaking about the river. Bathe a bit. It's one, but it's different. It's the same. It's not the same. It's changeless. It's moving. So all this takes us from this black and white thinking, right? Good, bad, dualistic thinking. That's why we need to go beyond dualism, because reality is not dual ultimately. So if you approach reality with a dualistic framework, black and white thing, moving or not moving, either or, you will clash. You won't be able to access how reality operates in its most intimate level. So, yeah, the soul is changeless, as we say. Something that never changes about the soul is its boundless potential to experience love in ever new ways. That's, again, a way of integrating the two. The soul is unchanging in its potential to experience ever new, ever fresh love. And in that context, I will say it's arguably Krishna is saying the Gita 229, Ashtaryavat, Ashtaryavat, Ashtaryavat. The soul is wonderful. Krishna is looking at us, remember, for who we are, and that means for all that we can be. That's how Krishna sees us. That's how the guru, genuine sadhu guru sees us. They are not seeing us for, okay, this is who you are. Put you in the box. But, this is all that you can be. As Samara said, your future is brilliant. I'm seeing you according to your brilliant future. That's so generous. No, we are not being seen as, you did this 30 years ago. Yeah, I know who you are. Go to that box forever. Ooh. Or not even that, but I know who you are at present still. You have this problem and imperfection, and that's who you are. We are not being seen like that from above. We are seen for all that we can be, from our brightest potential. But we should extend that to others as well. How we relate to one another according to our brightest potential. We will be able to do that. We are in paradise, basically. We are creating heaven on earth. So yeah, when Krishna looks at the soul and its boundless potential and love, he says, Ascharyavat, wow, you're wonderful. This is wonderful. This is amazing. What's going on with these atmas? Let me share a quote that I have here from Sulasidhar Maharaj. It happens to be in page 108 of the book. Not on purpose, it just happened that way. Can I ask you a glass of water, please? Thank you. So Srila Maharaj says, in connection to this, right? To once what happens when you actually see who you are and all the potential you have. Once we encounter our soul, a diametrical change, again, paradigm shift, takes place in our life. At that moment, we are astonished to realize, oh, such a highly qualified thing exists within me. What a wondrous existence I possess. Truly, I am the soul, and the nature of the soul is so noble, so high, so good. So let's pray so that day may come fully one day. So here's Celestial Master paraphrasing how we will feel when we actually get a glimpse of who we are. In a humble way. Again, this doesn't come from a place of pride, as you can clearly see, right? So the same way Krishna sees us and says, wonderful, wow, you are a unit of wonder. I mean, Krishna himself, who is pretty wonderful himself, is amazed at us. How much amazed we will be at us, how much amazed we will be at Krishna. Everything is full of wonder at the end of the day. And one last thing, and I will mention this briefly, that I try to address in this particular key paradigm shift. When we say the soul is changeless, sometimes, and I, again, this is a theme that I know some devotees, some members of the Gaudiya Vaishnava community may hold different opinions, and I'm fine. Sometimes we say, okay, the soul is changeless. That means that every soul already has a predetermined loving relationship and a spiritual identity established with Krishna in a particular rasa. I don't agree with that.
Oh.
And my whole first book is about that, with all affection and respect. And I try to make the case why that's not the case and why scriptures say basically the opposite, that bhakti is not inherent in the jiva, but it's a gift. The jiva has the potential to embrace bhakti, but we do not have already bhakti. We do not have a particular inclination that comes as a result of bhakti samskar. And again, this is not my creation. This is what scriptures say. That's the main theme of my first book. And then, of course, the second part of that book is harmonizing how to understand what some of our acharyas seem to say the opposite. Or when they seem to say that, and sometimes they seem to say the opposite of that. Two different. So that has been the main exploration in that first book, which for me actually is even my point with this is if someone comes to says to me, as they have, to me bhakti is inherent. Okay, I'm not trying to convert you. We can talk about it. But for me, it's interesting to be open to have a conversation about, okay, this theme seems controversial. Here we seem to have different opinions. Let's talk about those things. Let's not just like, no, we cannot talk about that. That's complex. Or let's cherry pick the opinion that I like, that is more comfortable for me. Now let's exercise into proper thinking and how to harmonize what seems to be contradictory and see if we can find a reconciliation. So anyhow, I'm mentioning that in this context because sometimes one may think, oh, the soul is changeless, means you have a changeless relationship with Krishna in Vatsalya rasa, whatever, and eventually you will realize that. In one sense, that means I didn't have a choice about how I want to love Krishna, right? And love is voluntary. Not only I should be able to choose whether I want to love Krishna or not, but how to love him. All right. Anyhow, that's a big conversation. The book is available in Amazon for those. But I wanted just to briefly mention in connection to the notion of the changelessness of the soul, how we are changeless and yet ever evolving. Okay, before moving to the next one, anything, any thoughts, any ideas, or any other forms that we can misconstrue, misread our changelessness in a very wrong way? Krishna-bhakti.
Does it mean when we're ever evolving and full of wonder, this is the Ananda aspect in us? Because we're such an Ananda like Krishna, and this is.
No, I wouldn't say like Krishna. Again, that's a long conversation.
Okay. But is it the Ananda aspect in us?
That's a long conversation. There is, but as I explained in the book, Sanatana Goswami explains that actually the Ananda doesn't mean it mostly means that we are devoid of suffering. But it doesn't mean that we intrinsically have a particular type of Ananda related to a relationship with Krishna. Again, it's a long conversation. Probably I shouldn't even have brought the topic in the conversation because now I'm opening a can of worms, as Rasangi said the other day. I'm a worm can opener, right? That's one of my, in my CV, my curriculum is like, who are you? Can worm, or can open? Yeah, so my point is that we have Ananda doesn't mean that we already have some intrinsic ecstasy connected to a particular relationship with Krishna. Let's put it that way. And again, I know it's a complex issue. I mean, you may have heard exactly the opposite many times.
Yes.
So I don't want to, again, over shock you more than I already shocked you. And there's other things to gradually digest. And even again, if at the end of the day, one thinks that's too much of a topic for me at the time, it's fine. Or even if one explores and in one's own way, I think I feel differently, I'm okay. Again, I'm not touring the world trying to convince people about that. But there's the evidence or thoughts in the book I wrote to contemplate another way of addressing the thing, which is not, of course, it's not only me who thinks like that, just in case. There are different people who agree with me, people who think differently.
Could it be compared to a field? Was heißt Frucht?
Fertile.
Fertile, to a fertile field, and a fertile field is capable of bringing forth so many different plants.
Yeah, that's the analogy I mention in my book, actually. Because because sometimes the analogy is different. The analogy is like you already have the seed.
Yes, but
and you just receive the water, and the seed already is a tomato seed, or it's a curasa seed. But again, these are analogies, so we cannot prove a sedantic point with analogies, because you can use the same analogy to prove the exact opposite. Like you just have used a similar analogy, soil, seed, water, and we could say again, you already have the seed, you just need the water. Or you can say, no, you have the soil and you can receive many seeds, and according to which seed you receive in terms of sadhu sangha and bhakti samskars impression, a certain fruit will come. So again, we cannot prove any point in our Siddhanta by mere analogy only. The analogy can help us elaborate something that has to be established by referring to Shastra, basically. End of that conversation. Okay, Patrak.
Can I come back to the term unchangeable or unchanging?
Yes. Thank you.
Even if I assume, let's say, I'm a real stubborn person, I won't change. But due to outside circumstances, let's say you meet different people, you're in different environments, you make different experiences. Even though maybe even sometimes desperately I try to stay stubborn and rigid, I don't want to change.
Sit closer, because I know that you have to go out to for caffeine, but the point is that I'm not sure if they are listening to you. No, bring the chair, no problem. You can bring the chair closer. Just to guarantee that they are listening to what you're sharing. I'm sorry to interrupt what you're saying.
No, it's perfect. Now I start coughing again, you'll see.
I make you cough. The proximity, I'm repelling you. That's my nature. Sorry. So stubbornness.
So even though I like to believe that I am not changing due to circumstances and influences that are out of my control, there's a different result anyway, even if my reaction would be the same to them.
Yeah.
So in that sense, the outcome is different. So in that sense, I am changing anyway.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I'm going there at one point, but no, it's good that it's nice how many times you are bringing themes that I'm thinking about bringing eventually. So that shows it. So yeah, it's never the same, as we were saying yesterday with this spiral example, that even if you say, oh, I'm again here, I'm moving in circles, same situation or same pattern, but at the same time, there's always something new, right? Yeah. Last one before going to the next one. Yeah.
The soul is a living individual entity.
Yeah.
So individual means it cannot be separated or
Mm-hmm.
parted.
Mm-hmm.
So individual.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's me. I'm a living unit of potential, because at the same time, I'm not made of dead stuff, even if it exists or would exist. So
I'll talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah. So it cannot be otherwise. I'm what I am. I'm me.
Yeah.
I'm this specific individual living entity.
Yeah.
But it is my nature. By nature, I'm dynamic. Otherwise, I would be dead and not existent yet.
Yeah. And Krishna said in the Gita, whatever does not exist will
Yes,
never
yes,
exist. And
yes.
whatever exists will ever always exist.
Yeah.
So we are always what we are. We cannot escape from that, fortunately. Right?
Right.
And I appreciate what you say, I am who I am. I like this definition in the Bible where God defines himself, I am who I am. Though actually the original Hebrew, I talked with some rabbis, actually say, I will become what I will become. So it speaks in terms of potential again. So the I am means all that I can be. So even God is defining himself in terms of potential. And that's a very similar way that we can present ourselves. Who are you? I am who I am. It sounds abstract, like sounds strange if someone in the street asks you, who are you? And generally we tend to give our names, right?
That's an invitation.
But I am who I am.
Yeah.
Because if not, we resort to so many labels. No, my name is this, I'm from this country, I'm man, woman, or whatever, I'm disciple of this guru, I'm member of this society. And in one sense, of course, I'm not against any of that, but it's not but who you are. I mean, I am who I am. You follow my point? So it's an invitation for the other person to actually know me for who I am and not for my credentials, labels, which are there somewhere. But who I am is who I am. And that's unique, irrepeatable, and who you are is who you are. And who we are is all that we can be. Going back. And even God himself describes as such. So that's very interesting. Third key paradigm shift. Let's move forward. Because we have some other plans for the day, right, my person? Okay. Yes. The third one, we briefly touched upon that yesterday, or more than briefly, so maybe I will touch upon briefly now. We are already saved. Remember that one? That felt good, right? Through bhakti, we engage in the very practices that reflect our eternal destiny, revealing that our spiritual goal has already embraced us. Maybe I haven't attained the goal, but the goal has attained me. Bhakti has knocked on my door and I've dared to open the door. All that remains is to honor the call of ever-expanding love. You can rest in that fact. You're already saved. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya, says the Bhagavatam. Bhakti comes from bhakti. Bhakti goes to further bhakti. The goal of bhakti is bhakti. The source of bhakti is bhakti. The goal of bhakti is bhakti. That makes bhakti to be the actual goal. Because if the goal of bhakti will be something else, that something else will be higher than bhakti. But since there's nothing higher than love, But bhakti, that's the goal, that's the means, that's the goal.
So that's
and it's
absolute.
and it's an ever expanding goal at the same time. No? So again, as we say this day, we are already doing what we want to do forever. And when we feel we have those glimpses, as we say yesterday also, oh, I could be doing this forever. As I trust we are already having these days, at times, hopefully, especially maybe at Prasadam time. I could be doing this forever. Even if that case, we are having an actual glimpse of eternity. That's how Bhakti is working. Bhakti is giving you the experience. This you're already doing what you plan to do for eternity, forever. Let me share a quote. I have a few quotes to share today. A quote from Srila Prabhupada in connection to, if you are doing bhakti, you're already saved, you're already, even if you want to put it some way, in the spiritual world. In one way. It may take a little bit time to officially arrive to a certain degree of that, but it's just a matter of time. But it's all warranted. Success is warranted. Prabhupada says there is no difference between the kingdom of God and the devotional service of the Lord. That's Prabhupada, that's not me. No. There's no difference between bhakti and the kingdom of God. Since both of them are on the absolute plane, to be engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord is to have attained the spiritual kingdom. You're already saved. Another way of putting that. Right? So in that sense, as I put also in my book, there is nowhere to arrive. No, it's not like, okay, I'm doing this here to reach there at some point. You're already there. There's nowhere to arrive. There's nowhere to go. I put it like this. There's nowhere to go, but everywhere to arrive. In other words, you can always arrive more. You already arrived at bhakti, but there is a further arrival. You can always go deeper, deeper, deeper. And that's why our traditions say a devotee doesn't care for liberation. From that place, it should be. Not like forcibly, I don't care for liberation, but actually I care so much to get out of here. But it's like, I really have this glimpse of I'm saved, I could be doing this forever. The idea of liberation disappeared. Even you forgot about that thing called mukti. That's how it should happen, not like by force, like, mukti, get out of here. I was told I shouldn't care for you, but actually care so much to get out of it. No, it shouldn't work like that. But by being confronted with the generosity of bhakti, you're already in the kingdom of God, in Prabhupada's words. If you are engaged in bhakti sincerely, again, we assume sincerity is there. So all success is warranted. So many verses, Krishna saying that you will never perish. There's no loss or diminution. You are on the road back home, so to say. That's it. And then the question is, okay, if I'm saved in some way, as we say also, I see yesterday, you shouldn't see that negatively. I'm saved from. But what I'm saved for? No. What to do with my salvation? How to offer myself in the salvation? And that, of course, it shows us the ever-evolving prospect to dedicate ourselves in loving service forever. That's the meaning of the word servant, actually. Like Mahaprabhu says in Sikshastakam 5, Anartha Nivritti Kinkaram. Kinkara means servant. But Kinkara, Kim means what, and Kara means to do. So Kinkara means what to do. That's the only question a servant has. How to serve today, how to love today. And at every moment, they can always ask the same question, and there's always a new answer. So that's the question we have. What I'm saved for. Kimkara, what to do, how to serve, how to love today. So as I put at the end here, all that remains is to honor the call of ever-expanding love. There's no other concern at that point. Mukti stuff, no. So that's the third key paradigm shift. Dear ones, you are already saved.
So that means when we live our bhakti, we don't limit ourselves. And so it's for the first point.
Yeah.
It goes hand in hand. It's wonderful.
Makes sense, right? That's good. Again, bhakti is already there. We're already doing what we want to do forever. We want to continue doing that forever. So, and again, someone may argue, yes, Maharaj, but we are not actually saved. We have not yet attained Prem. We are not in Golok Vrindavan officially. So only then we are saved. But no, in one sense, you're already doing what you want to do forever. If you really feel that, that's my point. If you feel that, if you want that, if you voluntarily decide to give yourself to the practice from that place with sincerity, there's nothing that can get in the way of your progress. No? There's there's one I have to find that part, but there's a very interesting which was the quote I shared from Prabhupada, page 95. Let me share this. This is very beautiful. How I think both Srila Siddhar Maharaj and Prabhupada say. Srila Siddhar Maharaj says, once begun, our journey towards God can never be stopped anywhere.
Ooh.
Again, assuming you are being sincere, right? It is merely a question of delay. No? It may take some time. Ages and ages may pass, but our ultimate success cannot be checked. And Prabhupada says that even more intensely. So pure and this bhakti is so pure and perfect that once one has begun it, one is forcibly dragged to ultimate success. That's it. Good luck with that one. So these are the type of warranties that, on that basis, I say you are already saved. I'm not saying this to be lazy. Oh, I'm already saved. That's not the point. Again, if you really are sincere and say that, then comes the question, what I'm saved for? And you become so active and so alive and so vibrant and dedicating forever. Because even if you officially reach Golok Vrindavan, still you will be asking the same question. How can I give myself in the best way, in a better way?
We can give bhakti to others.
Yeah.
As there's more bhakti and more, and it increases more and more.
Yeah.
One will be forcibly dragged to be not lazy.
Sorry?
One will be forcibly dragged to be not lazy.
Exactly. That's if we are sincere, the opposite of laziness will happen. You will be like so moved, so activated, so inspired. So I mean,
only think positive, no?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's really positive orientation. And again, that's so important. Though we are talking about Anartha Nivritti, getting rid of false values, you can see how mostly we are talking about that, speaking about positive things, because that's the best and I would say only way that you actually can get rid of false value, by bringing something so positive and so real that
The antidote.
and the false value is like disappeared, like you even forgot about that. Right? Okay, let's go to the next one, which is connected to this one. The fourth one says, attaining a further salvation. We already said you already saved. Now, attaining a further salvation. True salvation is not a final destination, but an ongoing journey as love continuously unfolds. We never fully arrive, quote unquote. We are always progressing toward deeper and greater expressions of love. But it's another way of saying the same thing, pounding the post a little bit strong. So again, salvation, if we choose to use the word salvation as I did, it's not an end point. It is a rhythm. It is a dance that always continues. Again, unfolding like a spiral. Salvation spiral. That's a good one. The salvation spiral theory. It's not a straight line. You are here, you reach there, you are saved. End of the game over. No? So we never fully arrive in that sense. We are always progressing toward deeper and greater expressions of love. It's a journey, as I like to say, a further arrival. Like I think I put in, further arrival, and always a further from. So I think I put in radical personalism, from here to a deeper here. Right? It's not an escape from here. It's not an escape from the present moment to reach some other place somewhere else. It's here to a deeper here and to a deeper here. And to continue Like the Bhagavatam will say, Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam, third verse, drinks this juice, nectarian wine of the Bhagavatam, even after liberation, forever. Rumi, similarly, like Sufi mystics, poet, they use a lot about the analogy of wine, like an intoxicating beverage that represents divine love, divine intoxication. So a mystic is one who never stops drinking. Again, perpetual further arrival. Another glass. Yes. That's how Vishwanath Chakravarti actually comments on this third verse of the Bhagavatam, because Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam also can mean drink this juice of the Bhagavatam, this rasa, till you pass out. Boom. Like if like a drunkard in the bar, like give me another one, give me another. At one point, like boom.
Yeah.
But then he says, so drink till you pass out, and when you pass out, at one point you will wake up and ask for another drink, and you will pass out, and I will go, and then that's our eternal prospect in the divine tavern. Give me another glass of this one. Wow. Oh. When you're back again, 2 glasses now.
I think that's how Krishna consciousness should be spread.
I mean, that's how the whole movement began. That was Nityananda Prabhu. He was a madman. He was Avadut. And his Dwadas Sagopal, his 12 associates, they were drunk or in love of God. They will just knock doors. Someone will open. They were like crying and in ecstasy, embracing. That was, strictly speaking, that was the beginning of the spreading of the movement. I mean, I'm not saying just imitate Nityananda. You may end up in jail after 5 minutes. But there has to be something internally happening for that to be contagious. Again, that's preaching, quote unquote. The word is prachar. And prachar means, come from achar. Achar means behavior. Achar means a very special type of behavior. It means when you are believing the whole thing so deeply, that makes you behave in a very special way. And that's the prachar, that's the preaching. Sometimes you don't even need to say anything. Mahaprabhu converted the greatest non-devotee Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in silence. He didn't say anything. He just showed up and his prachar spoke for himself. Like this phrase attributed to St. Francis, always preach the gospel and whenever necessary use words.
Yes.
But example speaks louder than precept. So anyhow, that's how it works. That's how the whole thing works. Another drink. Yeah, actually, that's one name for Krishna, the intoxicated one. In the Vishnu Sahasranam, the 1,000 names of Krishna, one is basically drunkard. How to say in English? Drunkard. That's one name for God. In the 1,000 names for God, one is drunkard. So no wonder if you relate to that person, you end up being a drunkard also, and the two of you are in the tavern asking for another one. No? That's a way of speaking about the interaction of love and rasa. Everyone is intoxicated. And in one part of the book, and I briefly will mention this, in connection to this notion of attaining further salvation, I speak about the spiritual world. Sometimes we use the word Vaikuntha, we use the word Braj to refer to spiritual world, the world of salvation. Whomever gets there is saved. But again, there is a further salvation. Vaikuntha means what? Means no limits. Yeah.
I heard no fear.
Also, but because there's no limits. Because there are no limits, there's no fear. When we are constrained by limits, fear comes. Vaikuntha literally means no limits, which means you go there, and there are no limits to how much you continue to expand and grow and love. It will be no sense. Okay, you get to Vaikuntha, you can love more. There's no never expanding, ever newness, but the place is called no limits, right? And Braja, which is a brief word for Vrindavan, Braja means it's a verb. Like Krishna says in the Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Braja. Braja means to move. So also Braja means indicates there's an ongoing movement without limits in how love expands there. So all these words that we use for the spiritual world speak about once you attain that, which is a state of consciousness, still is moving and there are no limits, right? Further salvation, continual arrival, so to say. So that's the hallmark of love. It resists closure. It requires continual expansion. Any thoughts about that? Any questions? Any further ways that we can misread this and think of salvation in limited ways, which doesn't sound as salvation at all? And those connected online, of course, also invite to participate just in case.
When I was reading Changelessness,
Mm.
I realized that mostly the last part, this divine madness of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I felt so much attraction, and I thought, this is real life. Because in a perverted reflection, you were bringing this example of the tavern. I can also very much relate to that, because
Which example, sorry?
of the tavern, of the
Oh, yeah,
bar.
yeah, yeah.
Because when I was a student, there were some periods when I lived a life. I was into ecstasy, not the drug, but my whole life revolved around. I always wanted to be ecstatic, so we also used to drink a lot of alcohol, because otherwise I would not be able. I would not have been able to cope with life.
Mm-hmm.
And so in these circumstances, and I was reading about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all this, what is going on there in Jagannath Puri, then I was really attracted so much. And I realized how much boring is heavenly life on the heavenly planets. Maybe I'm in some way, yeah, because of course the demigods are on a certain level of consciousness. It's not so easy to talk about them and to realize what they are doing. But in principle, it seemed to be really boring there and too much.
All respect to the devas over there. Nothing personal. Indra, don't get angry. Don't bring thunderbolts. Don't bring rain. We are planning to go for a walk today. Be good, please.
Yeah, hopefully, I didn't spoil everything.
And if there's any problem, you talk to Jagannath. Yeah.
So I was so much attracted to that because I was feeling that's real life.
Yeah. I remember when I went first time, you were talking about Mahaprabhu and all that happens in his, especially his, I understand, if I understood correctly, his last 12 years, he's in the Gambhira in Puri. And I remember first time I went there, the actual room, some of you may have been there, and that room is just like, I don't know, 2 meters for 2 meters for 2 meters. And I mean, for some, it may sound boring to stay there 12 years without even almost leaving the room. It's like, it seems like a prison. It's like madness. But he has such a huge internal life that's secondary. As we say, the opposite, if you have all the space in the world, but there's nobody to love, it's like, but if you are at prison with your beloved, that's it. You're in a cave. That's great. So yeah, I was thinking about that. You're referring to that. And when I was looking at Gambhira, that room is like, wow, it seems to be nothing externally. There's a rock room, cavern, cave-like prison, but there was so much freedom and ever-evolvingness and tavern-like intoxication. Yeah, there's nowhere else we don't need to go anywhere else. The whole thing is going on there.
And this is so specific about Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. So I didn't find that.
I will refer in a few minutes to some other traditions too. In their own way, they have also glimpses of that.
Yes.
Yeah. Though,
Right.
Yeah. So that's nice also.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one, if you allow me. Fourth one. Let's contrast now a little bit. All this beautiful, ever-evolving wine of sacred intoxication to the soul's now ever devolving potential. Again, we have ever evolving potential as long as we express it in the proper direction and the proper shelter, but we can have an ever devolving potential in one sense. So it says, while the soul is imbued with divine luminous potential, neglecting it can lead to decline. To honor our essence, we must consciously strive toward our highest ideals, remaining mindful of the consequences of turning away from them. So again, we have potential, but also we have freedom. We have free will, because love grants freedom. Krishna loves us. He gives us free will, so we can choose voluntarily to love him back or not. And then comes that part. What happens when we choose not, the part not? Well, just make a brief study of human history. And even in the name of God, the worst things in history have been perpetrated, right? So we have the freedom to forget God, to forget love, and that has a price. No? Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, I don't know, chapter 16, I think verses 8 and 9, he's speaking about asuras, which basically means someone who turns their back to Krishna. That's why Prabhupada will use the expression back to Godhead. Now you have turned your back to him, now go back to him. Now look in that direction. But when we do not do so, Krishna will say in the Gita, humans will, asuras, he will say in that case, will create actions that will destroy the whole world. And we are seeing now, I mean, we humans have become smart, quote unquote, enough to figure out how we can create atomic bombs and things that in principle could actually destroy everything, at least in planetary level. So we have expressed our potential in a direction of the ultimate destruction. And not only that's in potential, we have done a lot of destruction, and I mean, we have been talking these days about Holocaust, and we are in a place where there's lots of that imprinted in the DNA of the collective population. So we are still healing from the ever devolving potential of us as humans, right? So I think that's important, no? In one sense, when we witness something like a Holocaust, and I don't want to take you there so much, but you see, okay, how low can we fall? But also indirectly, that shows how high we can go. Proportionately, in the other, if we could go in that to that same degree upwards, so to say, wow. So we can learn a lesson even when witnessing the lowest of the lowest, which is indirectly that showing that I could get to the highest of the highest if I express my potential in the proper direction. Do you follow my point? So there's still a lesson there, like indirectly that's speaking about our brightest potential, indirectly. And many times we also should be, how to say, we have this brightest potential, but that doesn't mean we have embraced that yet. So we should also humble ourselves by realizing I have a very dark potential if I choose to go there. Not to, again, to over-identify with that and to actually go there. But I remember once one psychologist was giving a lecture, and he was talking to many people, and he said, okay, who of you agree with what was done in the Holocaust? Raise your hand. Of course, nobody raised their hand. And then he said, but do you know that probably if you have been there at that time as a German, you will have subscribed to the Nazi regime because of the influence of the environment. Not to judge you are a bad, evil person, but how easily we can be dragged in the wrong direction and express ever devolving potential. So he said that again, he was not accusing anyone of being a Nazi in that room, but just saying, be sober, be humbled, to know that you have that potential. Even if you are not actualizing that, any one of us can become serial killer, dictators, and I mean, not to say you are that, and you will be that, but the potential is latent there. So just to not be neurotic, but be vigilant enough. And not just make this whole potential talk like, brightest potential and ever evolving, and I can be all. Yes, Kijai. But this also is a possibility, and we have seen that in history and in our lives also at times, in some level or another, which should give us enough glimpse of what if I continue pushing in that direction? Where will I end? Okay, let's go back to
There's a Hiranyakashipu in all of us.
in potential.
Yes, in potential.
Yeah, and a Prahlad as well.
Yeah.
And again, to work on this is a way of speaking about Anartha Nivritti. Let me read one paragraph from the book in this connection. I say like to acknowledge the possibility of going in those directions is the price we must pay to truly access our brightest potential. This intricate process, known in our tradition as Anartha Nivritti, involves confronting and acknowledging our shadow facets. It requires the courage to delve into the uncharted recesses of our subconscious, even when faced with uncomfortable truths that expose our capacity for evil. It's uncomfortable. At its essence, evil represents missed potential that has strayed from its mark. That's also an important point. Like when we have a capacity for evil, let's say for bad stuff, but that's in going to the Bible, for example, the word sin appears a lot in the Bible. But the original word for sin was hamartia, which is an archery term, which means missing the mark. So that's like also to bring self-compassion. Okay, you can say that, oh, what she did was evil, or what you can say, she missed the mark. No, so next time aim more accurately. In other words, what we say is what do is evil, of course, not to justify any evil, but it's misdirected potential. At the end of the day, we are units of potential, and we should learn to aim our potential more accurately. That's what education should be, basically, right? So even when, and this is connected to something that you were talking before, but right, even when we devolve, we're talking about ever devolving potential. Even when we devolve, and we may, I don't know, do something horrible, and that as a reaction takes us to a very horrible place, still at that moment, we will be in the best possible situation we could be to continue to grow. According to what we did, of course, right? You follow my point? Even if I'm here and I feel, oh, I did this, okay, I went backwards, I'm lower. You are where you have to be according to what you did, and in that particular scenario, you are receiving the best possible chance to grow to the next stage. So there's no need to lament excessively, so to say, as we were given the example of Krishna as a GPS, right? We're going right, and GPS Krishna say, now it's time to go left. We go right. So Krishna recalculates and provides the best possible scenario considering our most recent mistake. No? Trying to accommodate, okay, now you're in this situation as a result of your previous missing the mark, but recalculating, this is the best possible scenario now. Take the next step forward. So life is always reaccommodating, recalculating to give us another chance and another chance. Even when we are in a very dark place as a result of previous actions, still there is hope there. Still there is a chance to take a better decision and move forward. That's clear? So I'm trying to balance speaking about ever evolving with ever devolving, but when going to ever devolving also, there is hope. And we are never the same, as we were saying, even when we feel, oh, I'm making the same mistake for the last 20 years over and over again. But it's never exactly the same in every sense. So there's always a chance to learn something new and continue to grow and not feel ourselves stuck eternally, absolutely, or something. Any thoughts regarding this one before we move to the next one?
We have bad experiences, But these bad experiences lead us to new potentials.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it may be painful, unsettling, we know all that. It feels like hell, but still there is an openness there. Especially many times when there's pain and suffering, that opens our heart in special ways. Let's be honest. Not because we are masochists, but when that happens to come, that's offering a very interesting window of opportunity. There's one famous singer in the US, Leonard Cohen. He has this song that he says, what's the whole line? Something like pay attention to the crack within, because that's where the light gets in, right? Something like that. No? So the crack is like, pain, suffering, brokenness. But some light is entering through that. But we have to pay attention, right? Okay, shall we move forward to the next one? The next one, we're talking about potential, whether it's ever evolving, ever devolving. The next one is fear of our brightest prospect. That may sound counterintuitive. Why should I be afraid of my most brilliant potential? We fear not only our darkest potential that we just explored, but also our brightest possibilities, as they lie in the unknown and beyond our immediate grasp. So that's one reason why we may fear our brightest potential, just because we don't know what's that. And whatever is unknown, we are afraid of that generally. We only feel secure what is certain, what we know. What lies in the unknown, even if it's your brightest prospect, I'm terrified. That's one way of speaking about that. Again, it sounds counterintuitive. We often imagine, my greatest fear is failure, but sometimes we are terrified of our own glory. One reason is because they lie in the unknown, but there are other reasons. I'd like to share them with you. And I will share two quotes, if you allow me. They are not in this book. They are in the next one I'm writing. Again, I cannot avoid continue to talk about the same things. I finished one book and it's like, no, still we have to say more. Another book. There's a famous quote by Marianne Williamson. Maybe you know that one. So she gives voice to this paradox. It's a paradox. You're afraid of your brightest side. She says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. I'm not saying that we are not fearing that, but I'm not saying, she's saying this, that's not your deepest fear. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frighten us. So much power. Again, the soul is a unit of potential. There's lots of power there. So sometimes that can be intimidating. So much power? What to do with that? As we say, we are terrified about freedom. We are terrified about love many times. We are terrified about our power. Abraham Maslow, he's another Abraham Maslow. He's a psychologist. He also will speak about this, he used the word the Jonah complex, going to Jonah, figure from the Bible, the one who was swallowed by the whale. And he also was afraid of his own greatness, basically. We are fear of our greatest possibilities. So I like to share a quote from him, which further clarifies what we are trying to talk about here. He said, we fear our brightest possibilities. We are generally afraid to become we are generally afraid to become that which we can glimpse in our most perfect moments, under the most perfect conditions, under conditions of greatest courage. We enjoy and even thrill to the godlike possibilities we see in ourselves in such peak moments, and yet will simultaneously shiver with weakness, awe, and fear before these very same possibilities. Because it's too much. And there's a price to pay for all that. Again, we have a commitment to our potential. And when we see ourselves in our potential, with divine love, it's like, okay, this invites for terrifying intimacy. Let's put it that way. Well, terrifying. It's not terrifying, but it may feel terrifying. Depth. Or as I was telling you the other day, we were talking, Krishna loves you unconditionally and infinitely. That maybe is terrifying. Why he loves me that much? Well, what if we are really that loved by Krishna? What if our soul is that immense and amazing? No? Again, we are terrifying. Why? Because all that is dismantling all the small ideas we have about ourselves and about God and our love. It's like a death. It's like a blow death to false ego. So if we are quite identified with that side, all this infinite, beautiful, bright prospect is a death letter to all that. And it's terrifying to let that go, because probably those are the values, false values, we've lived with for time without beginning. You follow? It's a death invitation. It's no small death. Like Krishna in the Gita with Arjuna, when basically Krishna is inviting Arjuna to die to his false self. And Arjuna says, I prefer to be killed in the battlefield than to go through the death you are inviting me to. So that's the point I'm trying to make here when I say we are afraid of our brightest prospect. Not because the brightest prospect is worthy of being afraid of, but because it's so unknown, so we are so unfamiliar with that. It's sometimes so far away from how we usually see ourselves that it threatens to dismantle how all our false beliefs about ourselves. And so it's a gradual process. That's why it's gradual. But it's good for us to understand also, oh, I'm terrified about this thing that actually is beautiful. Why? And to make sense of that in a way that we are not saying, I'm intrinsically a demon, and that's why I'm afraid of that, and I'm so bad. And we are reinforcing the false patterns again by that. It's an interesting idea, right? Which sometimes we may not usually think about, but it's there in general, in principle, in some way or another. Any thoughts about that before we move forward? That's one of the other key paradigm shifts. This is clearly a paradigm shift. Because many times we think I'm only afraid of this. No, also this. There's lots of fear. That's why Krishna concludes the Gita saying, Masucha, don't fear. Like indicating probably there's lots of things to fear about. So gradually we have to dismantle that more.
Is this quote from Marianne Williamson in the book Return to Love? Because I think I've read.
I have to check I don't have with me here the actual reference. I have it in my book. I don't have my book here.
I
But
think it's in a speech from Nelson Mandela.
I
If you
think
Google it.
it's the other way around, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think Nelson Mandela took that from Marianne Williamson. Yeah.
That was-
Because I did that research, because I put the references. Let me tell you in a minute. 428.
When he became president.
Yeah. Marianne Williamson, A Return to Love, Reflections on the Principles of A Course in Miracles. Page 190. Just in case. Yeah, and Nelson Mandela took that from that. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I was walking in the little place where I live in this small village, and there's an old telephone cell. And then I went in, I found this book, Return to Love. And then I started to read. I've also read some parts of Course in Miracles, but then I started to read this book little, and just so every day, because this was 2.5 years ago, and there were many reasons to really for a big change in my life. And so every morning I read something. I just opened the book and I was reading this also. And even before that, I was thinking about that, why I'm scared of my own potential.
We speaking plural, no problem.
Yes. we are scared, we should hear of our own potential. And So this was very comforting. So this is another way to say that Krishna is always with me, or
Yeah.
with us. Yeah, because it was exactly the book I needed. I didn't read it completely, but just put out some things.
Yeah, and all this, hopefully so we can understand ourselves better and deal with us more compassionately. Again, all the things we are talking, all these lectures, not so we increase our self-deprecation and chastisement and weeping, but we can deal in a more, again, loving and compassionate way. Okay, let's go to the next one. We have 3 more left. Yeah, we are on time, I will say, in general, so bear with me. So the 7th one, continuing to speak about potential. Full potential lies in the present moment. No, so trying to, because sometimes speak about ever evolving and becoming would sound like we can become obsessed with the future. Like you are all that you can be. Yes, but all that I can be starts here and now. Right? I can only attain my potential in the present moment. There's no other. No, there's one famous Argentinian, famous in Argentina, you will know him probably, Facundo Cabral. He's a famous poet and musician. He say, you better, sorry, you better get along with the present moment because that's where you will live for eternity. And there's no other place you can have it. So you better get along with each other because there's no other place you can be. So, so yeah, we speak a lot about potential, about the future, but that only can be unlocked in the now, in the here and now. So present. I like to make a play of words in English with present, no? Because in English you give a present to someone. And also present means, and you also speak about being present. So the best present is to be present in the present, right? That's an interesting word. And presence is an important word for us in the practice. So yeah, we have potential. As I speak in the word, we are not only human beings, but human becomings. But that becomingness becomes actualized in our beingness, in the here and now. It begins here and now or nowhere at all. That's it. In this case, it's black and white. You can attain all that you can be here or nowhere at all, because we do not inhabit the past or the future, though most of us in our life, in our minds, live in the past and our future. Try. We cannot, but try. Mind goes shopping to the past, toxic nostalgia. Oh, that was so beautiful, the good old days, or future, obsessed with the future. Rajas. Tamas is more past. Rajas is more future, attaining and this and goal-oriented. Sattva, beingness. Sattva means being, sat, and twa, ness. Present moment, here now. So instead of making a goal-oriented practice, I have to reach there in the future, make it presence-oriented. Be present to all that is here already. Like I quote Srila Siddhar Maharaj in Radical Personalism, he will say, perfection is everywhere. You don't need to go somewhere else. Everything is here now. So we attain the spiritual world, if you want to call it that way, in the here and now. It's not like, oh, here I'm doing it. I'm not that much present. I'm not that much connected, but I'm finishing my 16 rounds and I'm following my 4 regs. So magically, somehow at the end of my life, I will be transferred there and I will be informed in which department of service I will serve. No, it doesn't happen like that. You only arrive there by arriving there here and now and continuing to arrive, right?
If you're unhappy here, you will be unhappy there.
Exactly. No? And you don't want to be miserable for eternity. So better you learn to not be miserable here, right? So we only start arriving there here, because there is here. Again, that's a key paradigm shift, because it's so much easier to think, okay, here I'm miserable, here it's not working, here but somehow or other I'll get there at the end of this life. Krishna will do his magic. No, it doesn't work like Krishna is not that cruel to send you to a place that you are not choosing voluntarily to go here and now. But again, for us to choose to go there, here, we have to get a proper glimpse of what's that place or how that reality gets, because sometimes again we got the wrong idea and we don't want to go there, of course. So that's why we are trying to clear those misunderstandings and those false values, you know? So we really want to enter Vrindavan, the spiritual world, as a state of consciousness, as a lifestyle here and now. So anyhow, that's the other key paradigm shift, you know, like let's pay attention to the present moment. It's all about presence. When we speak about evolution and becoming, it's not a bypassing and escapism from what's coming to us. And so many things are coming in the present, so much complexity and stuff that needs to be integrated and accepted and embraced. So all that has to be done in the context of our brightest potential.
Teach in the Gita, I would say, because Arjuna thought about the goal and what he wants to do, but Krishna told him, no, do only your duty, be in the present, because and you win.
Mm-hmm.
Because that the goal depends on me, not on you.
Yeah. Next one, 2 more. Number 8. Let's go to humility for a moment. Humility is born from realizing the soul's potential. We speak a lot about humility in our tradition. So how to understand humility in a healthy way? Because again, so much trauma comes in the name of humility and surrender and all these beautiful words that they may get wrongly viewed. You have to be humble. Be humble. Sometimes it's taken as, it's this famous quote, you know, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less, right? They say. On other words, in this case, I will put it even more positively, no? Because it's not even about thinking of yourself less. Humility is about thinking, for example, how much Krishna is loving you, and that's humbling, right? I'm loved by the most important person unconditionally. How much I can love in return? How much potential do I have to love in return? To witness my potential, as we were quoting Srila Maharaj before. Oh, the soul is so noble, so dignified. I'm such a wonderful thing. I'm humbled by that fact. So for me, that will bring us a healthy understanding of humility, right? Like third verse of Shikshastakam, Mahaprabhu is saying, you be humbler than a blade of grass. That doesn't mean be miserable and be degraded and you are the worst of the worst and feel terrible about yourself. The more you do that, the closer you get to the third verse. No. Actually, I appreciate when he says, be humble like a blade of grass. The blade of grass bends without breaking. No? So be humble in a way that you can bend without breaking. So again, you can be humble not by shrinking yourself, no, by becoming less, but actually by beholding the immensity of who you are. That's humbling. Follow, it's diametrically opposed. It's not like I can only be humble by feeling myself bad about me, becoming less of all that I can be, but actually by actualizing my potential, right? And by seeing that potential. Again, Krishna is saying, you are amazing. We have to do something with that. That's why Sanatana Goswami will say, love and humility are cause and effect of one another. If you have actual love, you witness the love, and that creates humility because you can love so much more. There's no end to how much you can love. So that's humbling. No? Like Mahaprabhu, he has love and he will say, I have no love. He feels humbled and he pursues more love. No? Scriptures say the symptom of someone who has love is that he feels or she feels, I have no love. But feels, not just saying, because, oh yeah, I have no love. That means I have love. No. So, because the more love you have, the more you realize the endless potential for more love. So that's humbling. That creates healthy humility. Again, humility comes naturally as a result of love. I think I have one quote I want to share in this connection. Yes. Another one from Srila Siddhartha. Oh, okay. Page 126. He says, again, in connection to how we can become humble at the infinite prospect that lies in front of us. The knowledge of the sweet absolute has no limits. It is infinite. The search for him can never be finished, so you cannot rest. You cannot say that you have come so far and now only after a few more miles are left before you will finally get the divine once and for all. No, it is not like that. Our search for the sweet absolute is like swimming in an unlimited ocean. The true devotees know no satisfaction or fulfillment. Again, in the concept where we're talking, holy dissatisfaction. They feel no trace of satisfaction that they have achieved anything. Never. Again, humility in that sense. The inner sweetness of the truth and its infinite characteristic are such. Again, nothing about feeling miserable about myself, but just deep humility, overwhelming humility that comes, wow, this is endless, this is unlimited. So far, we have referred to our tradition. I'm sure quotes from Srila Siddha Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, Gita, Bhagavatam. But there's a whole section in the book that I also many times refer to other sister traditions, as I like to call them, to show we are not the only ones, just not to develop some superiority complex, like, oh, we go, the Vaishnavas have this and nobody else has it. No, they also have it in their own unique ways. So I would like to share one quote from those, just to give you a glimpse that we are talking about humility, right? So we don't want to become proud thinking, oh, we are the only one having that. So let's be humbled by witnessing how mystics from other traditions also express this truth in very unique, beautiful ways. So this is from Gregory of Nyssa. He's a Christian mystic. And he says that, this. Page 130. Well, through the new grace, we may obtain something greater than what we had before. This does not place a limit on our ultimate goal. Rather, for those advancing in perfection, the attainment of one good becomes the starting point for discovering higher goods. Thus, they never cease ascending, moving from one new beginning to the next, with the source of ever greater graces remaining boundless. For the desire of those who rise in this way never settles in what they already comprehend. Instead, with an ever-increasing longing, the soul continues ascending towards what lies ahead, traversing ever higher realms toward the transcendence. Again, another language, but basically speaking about infinite potential, what lies ahead. Like a friend of mine will say, not only we have the Godhead, but we have the God ahead, now in terms of potential. So anyhow, that creates awe. When we witness our potential and love, that we become filled with awe and wonder. And we surrender to that. As I like to say, our surrender should be fueled by awe and wonder. Like we have to express humility in a healthy way. We have to express surrender in a healthy way. Surrender is not out of fear, pressure, intimidation, but wonder. Something is so wonderful, but I cannot but surrender to that. I cannot resist. Any thoughts on this connection before we move to the last one? No? Okay, let's go to the last one. A few more minutes. I beg your patience and time, please. I'm trying to finish before the legal mark of 2 hours. I don't know if it's legal or not, but so far all lectures are lasting that. So the last one may sound very, again, counterintuitive and very interestingly, at least for me, challenging. It says, spiritual imperfectionism. It says, imperfection serves as a catalyst for growth, offering deep opportunities to learn from our mistakes. We're talking about that a little bit. As perfection is an endless process, both perfection and imperfection become fluid and dynamic concepts. So,
From whom is this quote?
sorry,
This quote is whose quote?
this is the no, this is not the
Also
quote.
the
This is
stuff-
my elaboration and the
This is
key
your
and the paradigm
elaboration.
shift. Yeah. So spiritual imperfectionism. Of course, here I'm not promoting let's be as imperfect as we can and make the more mistakes we can. But I'm starting by analyzing, as we already did, this notion that perfection is what's perfection? Fixed maximum, end point? No. It's always evolving. So in that sense, there is no perfection. So if there is no perfection, how much we can talk about imperfection? Because sometimes we talk about perfection as an end point, but also we talk about imperfection as an end point. Like you are imperfect, and it like you are branded with that original sin or who knows what. And generally, perfection, again, when we think perfection is a peak we must reach and it's over, many times that notion of perfection takes us to perfectionism, which is not healthy. We need a whole separate retreat to speak about that. Perfectionism and the obsession with doing it perfect and being perfect, and source a recipe for misery, so to say. And again, if our prospect is endless and unlimited, how much we can talk of perfection? It's that type of perfection, like an end point, like a fixed point. And again, if we cannot talk about perfection, how much we can talk about the imperfection? Because again, these are loaded words. When we say imperfect, many times shame, guilt, finished state, you are imperfect, that's wrong. So why do not reconceive imperfection? Okay, I may miss the mark, as we were saying. But that doesn't mean that that's the end of the story. That's opening a new door for choosing in a better way. So how much, if imperfection is taking me to new opportunities, how much can I label that as imperfection? That's basically my way of saying it, right? Like, for example, we have in our tradition this description of the Nitya Siddha, eternally perfect being. But again, that doesn't mean that they are not eternally perfect because they reach a final state, but because they are perpetually growing, right? So in that sense, we could say perfection is expansion. Real perfection means constant expansion. And real imperfection also implies some form of expansion. If I make a mistake, we want to label that as mistake. How much is that a mistake? If I learn from the mistake and I grow, how much can I call it a mistake? As they say, failure is the pillar of success. So failure brings success. How much was that failure, right? If imperfection opens new doors for growth and evolution, how much can I call it imperfection? I like to say sometimes, like, progress is the art of making increasingly refined mistakes. Another way of saying that. You're always doing some mistake, but you're becoming more refined in your mistakes, and you are progressing by doing that. So if you are progressing by doing that, how much that's a mistake? That's also kind of the joke, right? So anyhow, it's another way of framing and wording the whole thing for us to not think about imperfection as a finished state, rigid, you made it wrong, that's imperfect. No, that's a new door open for further progress. Again, it's another way of inviting for a paradigm shift. Looking at the word imperfection, since we're talking about perfection, from another way. So that's it from today from my side. But from yours, I don't know. Maybe you have anything to share today in the evening, just in case we have meeting with questions and answers, Q&A. So in case there are some of those, we also will be entertaining later. But if there's anything you need to share to feel complete, those in 3D, in 2D, now is the moment.
No, I would think I always related the words of the language as a person or bhakti, for instance. So on like perfection, it's a word, but it's also a person. It's embodied, or so to say.
You sound like a radical personalist.
So, and because also children, they learn to speak because of a personal relationship,
Yeah.
without grammar, without
Mhm.
introduction, without this and that. And so to explore a word means to surrender. So if there are so many connotations of perfectness, of
Mhm.
perfection,
Yeah.
yes, and so this all serves to bring out, to go deeper and deeper, and to connect more and more with the term perfection. That perfection also includes and must include imperfection.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the term perfection is not really complete.
Mm. That reminds me of one word that once Richard Rohr told me. He was talking about perfection, exactly what you say. Perfection must include imperfection, like embrace imperfection rather than exclude imperfection. No? He was speaking about love as perfection. Love, perfection is love, and love is not exclusivistic, it's inclusivistic. So real perfection must learn to include imperfection instead of excluding that.
And I try to think in that
Because many times in the name of perfection, we become so exclusivistic, so sectarian, fundamentalist, racist, everything. No, instead of being more generous, compassionate, and inclusivistic. Sorry.
And perfection is not dead.
Mhm.
It's a living
Yeah.
entity.
If not, it wouldn't be perfect. So again, we have to redefine what's perfection and what's imperfection. Let me conclude with one last quote from Srila Maharaj that summarizes all that we've been talking today, somehow, in my opinion. It's a beautiful one that I put in the conclusion of this third chapter, page 143. I'll try to continue, fasten your seatbelt, be present, and receive these words as a blessing from a guardian of devotion and guardian angel of each one of us. He says, we are always situated within infinite possibility. Therefore, our prospect, life after life, cannot be finished so easily. A seeker who is after the truth will search after newer and newer planes, and that means living and accommodating new experiences. Again, perfection accommodating imperfection. We are to become more and more accommodating, like love moving in zigzag, accommodating everything. We are to become more and more accommodating, earnest, and eager. Progress means leaving our former position and going on to something else. Only one who is hopeful of a brighter future can leave his formal position and advance. Siddha Maharaj Ki Jai. So again, if you have faith in your brilliant future, you can let go of where you are and move forward to the next step. No? Bhaktivinoda Thakur will say, today's perfection is tomorrow's imperfection. Right? Tomorrow will be a new level of perfection waiting for us. And the next day again, and the next day again. No? So that's how we move. But we have to have faith and hope in our brighter future. So hopefully all that we are sharing these days can give us a glimpse of how brilliant is our future, and hopefully we don't get that scared about our bright future, which can happen, as we say today. We can have more tools and support to navigate this journey. So thank you so much to all of you for presence, listening, attention, feedback, nourishing, churning, collective churning, to those of you connected there as well. And today in the evening, we'll be joining for Q&A, quest and exploration, whether in topics related to these or others. And tomorrow morning, same time, same channel, but new ever-evolving hearts, we'll be meeting again for the last part, which is matter, material energy, and Anartha Nivritti, and getting rid of false beliefs about this world, this existence. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanand Hari Bol, Vanchakalpataru Vishar Pasindhu Bheva Chav, Pitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo.